presentation on the Leucistic Screech owl. For those of you that don't know, it's a very oddly colored owl, so I hope you stick around to get a good view of him. I'm here to introduce Kara, Amy, and John with the Peace River Wildlife Center to talk about these birds. So let's welcome them up. Yay!
Hi, thanks for having us here. I hope you're all enjoying the Raptor Festival. So this little guy, this is a Luna, he's our Leucistic Screech owl, eastern screech owl. This little guy was found as a nestling down in Punta Gorda in a nature area. Usually the leucistic birds, if you're familiar with albino and leucistic, albino birds have no pigment. So usually they're all white.
Put the mic
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry, I'll start that again a little. This is Luna. As you heard, he's a Leucistic Screech owl. Leucistic birds, they're kind of like albino, but the albino birds have no pigment. So their eyes are red. They also are all white. Albino birds are prone to having eye problems because they have no pigment to protect against radiation from the sun. Leucistic birds have pigment, but it doesn't show up correctly in the feathers. Either they're all white like Luna here, or they'll be partially leucistic. They might have some white on them, have some normal colors. But with the leucistic birds, they still have pigment in their eyes, so they have some protection against radiation. They usually do not survive long in the wild. Leucistic birds taken by predators, and if they do survive to adulthood, sometimes they just don't have a good time. They don't have success finding food. Especially, a lot of times they get kicked out of their social group if they do survive to adulthood. Luna came into us as a nestling. He was found on the ground down in Punta Gorda, Florida, brought to our facility at Peace River Wildlife Center. These guys, we weren't sure what he was at the beginning. He didn't fit our regular identification guides. But we realized he's a screech owl. He was kept with us as an education animal. These guys, like I said, they wouldn't survive, so we knew we couldn't release him back out into the wild. Oh yes, sorry. These are what they usually look like. So screech owls are normally gray or reddish or brownish. They blend it with their with the surroundings very well. This screech owl, as you see, blends into that tree perfectly. Luna would not blend at all. Let's see, we're up in the snow. So this guy, like I said, they don't survive. But he's a very unique little bird. There's only about less than 1% of birds in the wild are leucistic. More often than not, there could be more out there, and they just don't survive to adulthood. This one is just under 2 years. Good question. Thank you.
How long do they live?
Oh yes. These guys can live 7 to 10 years in the wild. In captivity, they can live longer, into their 20s sometimes, but it's usually 10 to 20 years in captivity. But at our facility, we take in birds like this, other kind of injured and orphaned wildlife. Our goal is to rehabilitate and release them. But sometimes we get birds in like this that are, unreleasable for whatever reason, injuries or leucistic. Or like this one over here has an eye problem, so she can't hunt successfully. So we take those animals in, and if we have homes for them, we provide a home. If anybody has any questions, I can try to answer your questions. Yes. Oh yeah, sorry. Stout? He's got a pretty good grip. He's small though. He doesn't have a really strong grip. The screech owls are small. They mostly just hunt small, crustaceans. They'll hunt small rodents, lizards, small birds sometimes. They don't have to grab really tough prey. Sometimes they might go after that. They are flighty enough, active enough that night they can hunt body if they so wanted to. They do like insects too. They'll eat palmetto bugs actually. Sometimes they'll eat those things. But if you're familiar with owls, oh yeah, go ahead. What's that? Oh no, sorry. He's used to us, but he doesn't always tolerate, strangers. People he's not familiar with handling them. But if you're familiar with owls, they don't have muscles to turn their eyes, so they turn their whole head to look around. So if you ever see owls, they can turn their head 270 degrees. Yes. He gets fed, it's a good question. He gets fed mice and small mice. We get them come into us dead and frozen. So he doesn't live hunt. He could probably live hunt if he wanted to, but he's kind of lazy. If he can have it already handy there, he doesn't. He just eats it, and that's fine. Sometimes they'll also eat, insects. Like I said, they'll eat worms. Luna does not like worms. Some of the screech owls do. Sometimes he's not a big fan of those. Some do like crickets and other insects, but he prefers his mice. So those are his favorite. Any other questions? I'll pass it over to John.
Do they mate for life also?
What's that?
Do they mate for life?
They do.
Also?
They will mate for life, and obviously if they lose a mate, they'll find another. But they usually do tend to mate. There is sometimes there are cases where the male will mate with two females, and the second female will come in and pick the other one out and incubate her eggs and the other female's eggs. So sometimes they'll do that, but they usually do mate for life.
So what were the odds of, because she's albino, what are the odds
Of finding a
in
Leucistic?
wild? Yeah,
To find them in wild, there was a survey taken between 2000 to 2006 of people just identifying birds in their yards. Of those, there were about 5.5 million birds documented. Only about 1,000 birds were leucistic. So that's less than 1% of the population. Of course, more often than not, there could be more that are hatched, but they don't survive to adulthood.
Well, what are the likelihoods that a white one would mate?
Don't know, actually. That's a good question. If with the white ones would mate, and if they could reproduce it frequently. I guess, it's in the genes. It's like, it's having a recessive gene that could show up. But it's not prevalent because it just doesn't, it's not bred frequently. The birds don't always survive to keep it
But
human.
would a male shun it?
It's a good question. I don't know if the males would shun if it's a white one. I have heard of cases where there's a leucistic predator. Say I've heard of a turkey vulture that was leucistic that came in skinny because he was kicked out of the social group. So in that case, the other birds did not like this white one. They say, get away from us. And it needed the companionship, the help of other vultures helping it find food. So in those cases, it definitely does get kicked out of the group. Yes?
Do you think the parents rejected that bird?
We suspect the parents did kick it out because it was found on the ground. We couldn't find the nest exactly in the area. It's very likely mom did kick it out because it would attract predators to her other babies, and she's got to, sacrifice the one to save her others. So that's usually most likely what happened with this guy. But he's lucky because somebody happened to be walking on this nature trail. Very lucky that they found him because he was a nestler, and if he had been left there for the night, he would have been prey for something. So he's a lucky little bird. He was found and saved. So we're glad to have him. He's a very unique bird, something you probably will never see again, a white screech owl.
Can you pet him?
He doesn't really allow petting from strangers.
No, I meant you. Can you pet him?
Sometimes he'll let his handlers touch him.
Can you pet the bighorn?
So I don't know if she'll tolerate it. Some of the birds are picky. They all have their different personalities, but in general, mostly they only tolerate their handlers messing with them like that. And if that's all for questions on Luna, I'll pass it over to John.